Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Reds Talk, your favourite football fan channel dedicated to Manchester United. And boy, have I got a show for you guys today. It's Battle of the Billionaires. Sir Jim Ratcliffe versus Sheik Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, or SJB Hat, as I'll be referring to him due to the long name, etc. And unless you've been living under a rock as a United fan, we know that the two bids officially went in last night before the soft deadline, with the intention to own 100% of Manchester United. Now, the two bidders, of course, was Sir Jim Ratcliffe with his company Ineos, and Sheik. I'm going to just keep saying this long name. I'm just going to refer to SJB Hat. So that's Sheik Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, with his QIB, the Qatar Islamic Bank. So what I wanted to do with today's show is take a look at both buyers' intentions and what their plans are for Manchester United, and really try to provide some clarity for you guys who are maybe, I don't know, maybe slightly confused. You know what I'm saying? People in the comments, TikTok, hello, Dan Lancaster. Big up yourself, saying the bid is in. That's right, the bid is certainly in, for sure. So yeah, look, we'll start off with Qatar. So the sun, apologies, not the sun like, you know, in the sky that burns you and shit. The son of former Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani is prepared to pay a world record price to buy Manchester United. The bid is indicative at this stage because he's not been given access to accounts, commercial contracts, etc. So it's a bit of a premature bid at this moment in time. He's put forward how much he's willing to pay, but then maybe when he looks at the details behind closed doors, he's like, well, that maybe that doesn't add up, or maybe that doesn't, etc. So these are just kind of the bids that have gone in, but they still need to see more in depth of the club as well, according to reports. And reports suggest the Qatari offer for United is around £4.5 billion. Now, this takes into account the debt the Glazers have kept on the books and likely cost of infrastructure upgrade. A clearer picture will emerge once they see in-depth financials, as I've just touched on there. Some sources state that the Qatari offer for United exceeds €5 billion and therefore could break the record for the largest sale of a sports club, which will be music to the Glazers' ears, won't it? We know what they're like, all about that, all about power, money, greed, etc. It falls right into their wheelhouse of, yeah, like I just said. So a little more info on Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad. He's a lifelong Manchester United fan, chairman of the Qatar Islamic Bank. He was a UK educated, he was UK educated at the Royal Military Academy. He was previously a board member of Credit Suisse Group. So I don't think he's going to have any issue at all in regards to funding. He's probably got a lot of coin behind him, which, you know, you kind of expect with that kind of investment. SJB Hat, which is what I'm referring to now. I keep calling him his long name. I'm just going to call him Sheik. Let's call him Sheik. Should we do that? Let's just go with Sheik. Sheik has called his 9-2 foundation that is bidding to buy United this because he became a Manchester United fan in 1992 as a reference to the class of 92. And there was a bit of confusion with this at the start with a couple of people. When it came out, there was like, there's a class of 92 behind it. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Which obviously would have been huge if he managed to get all of the class of 92 behind him. Which I do want to touch about a little bit later on in regards to certain supporters and ex-players and celebrities and stuff like that. I definitely want to touch on that. But yeah, it's not the class of 92 behind him. His actual foundation's called 9-2 Foundation. And that's what's behind him, backing him, essentially. Could that be lip service or a happy coincidence? I'm not entirely sure. But just to provide a bit of perspective on his wealth. So the people who own Manchester City, the Abu Dhabi, the royal family of Abu Dhabi, their net worth is £150 billion. Now, the royal family of Qatar, their net worth is £335 billion. So literally double. So, and I'm not saying that like, oh, they're so rich. Oh, like buzzing. Like I'm saying it like, you know, just to, again, perspective that how rich cities owners are, double that. That's what we're working with at the minute. And Qatar's Islamic Bank's assets in 2022 were 42 billion. Income was 2 billion pounds. So this is significant wealth we're talking about here. And as we mentioned, whoever it is who's coming in to take over Manchester United, they're going to need deep, deep pockets because the investment is heavy. You talk about the stadium, facilities, transfer market. we've been through it all numerous times at the risk of repeating myself. So we know what we're dealing with here. It's billions pounds worth of investment on top of the fee that you're going to pay for the actual club as well. And I thought Simon Stone's tweet was really interesting last night in regards to this bid. He said the Glazers family position has always been strategic alternatives, including investment for a partial stake. Fair to assume this bid would not have been made without the strong belief that the family are going to sell the club. So it seems currently things are leaning towards the Qatar bid at the minute. But what's the plan for the club? The one thing we said as fans, and we've discussed again numerous times on this channel, is we want to see maybe like a 10-step plan of what you're going to do with the club. It's all saying, well, we want that investment. He's got loads of money. We want to do that. But Todd Bowley's got loads of money. He came in, got rid of everyone on the board at Chelsea, got rid of the manager, and kind of let a firework off at Chelsea. Do we want that as United fans? I don't personally want that. So I want to see what their plan is to come in and what they're going to do. And I think with the Qatar bid, he explained that in relatively good depth in comparison to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So sources close to the Thani bid said, if successful, they will prioritise long-term and sustainable investment in all Manchester United's men's and women's teams with a particular focus on youth development. It's a debt-free pledge. It's a pledge to invest in a new stadium, pledge to invest in a new training ground, pledge to invest in all teams and the surrounding community. That's what he's put out there. And look, I'm sure quite a lot of people are the same. I can't lie. When I first heard that, it's music to my ears. It is music to my ears. Because everything we've spoken about, what we want from the new owners, for me, when I was reading it, tick, 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 tick. Honestly, that's how I felt. But sometimes, like I said, these things can just be lip service and they'll just tell you what you want to hear. So when you do hear that, like myself, people jump on it and yeah, go get him loads of money. They're going to do the right things for the club. And again, on the flip side of things, I'm not going to turn around and say they're not going to do that, but you just have to be careful with the ulterior motives, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure, when the Glazers took over, their statement wasn't, well, we're going to milk the club dry for 18 years. We're going to leave clowns in charge of the club for years and completely ruin them, take dividends out every year, and leave the debt with the club. I'm sure they didn't say that, did they, when they was taking over? It was probably a case of, we're going to bring Manchester United back to the top of European football. We're going to do this. We're going to invest that. We're going to invest that, etc. I actually tried finding a quote last night of what the Glazers first said when they took over in 2005, and I couldn't find anything. It was just all to do with the Super League and them selling. I couldn't really find any specific quote, but I'm sure it wasn't what I just initially said. Otherwise, they'd be fucking stupid to say that. So again, I appreciate the fact that they want to do the best for the club and their intentions are really good. But again, it could all just be lip service. We don't know yet until we've kind of got into it a little bit more. Let's read some comments out, and then I'll get into a few more bits. Let's have a look. Dude. Sell to Qatar is saying Z Bars. Is it true we don't get Champions League if Qatar buy us? No. So basically, just to clarify on that situation, so the QIA, is it QIA or QSI? I think it is, who own Qatar. They're not allowed to buy the club. They're only allowed to buy a minority stake in Manchester United. This is a separate private investor. This is the brother of the Emir of Qatar, basically, who wants to invest in United, and apparently he's been a United fan all his life. Is it? I don't know. I don't know the guy. I didn't even know this was going to be the guy who was investing. I thought it was the Emir of Qatar. That's what everyone was talking about, but it's his older brother, I think. Something along the lines of that. This is a guy who we touched on before. He was like the chief executive of the Qatar Islamic Bank. And if you go to Qatar, then banks are everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And he's part of it. I think he's got a chief executive role or something along the lines of that with a Swiss bank as well. So they've got, like I said, they've got a lot of coin. They've got a lot of money behind them. That's been clarified up there. The only problem is the Glazers have final say on who they sell to. So yeah, ultimately they're going to sell to whoever offers the most. We've known this for a long time. My inkling is that that's going to be Qatar. So if people were happy with Qatar, I'd probably put my house on it, them selling. I'd be absolutely surprised if they didn't sell it to Qatar. But I've got no inside knowledge of that. Of course, it's just my feeling, my opinion, how it's going to go. I'm pretty certain there's always a clause that X amount has to be invested back into the club. Well, that's what happened with Todd Bowley when he bought Chelsea. They said you have to invest, I think, 1.5 to 2 billion pounds. I mean, he's fucking nearly halfway there, or well, he's halfway there, and I think he spent 700 million pounds on transfers and stuff, and another things behind the scenes. So he's halfway there, certainly on his way. Aaron Gregory saying Qatari outlined redevelopment of facilities and in the surrounding area. Vincent Bullock saying, hi guys, he's also got a British Army citizen because he went to a British Army school. Is that right? Yeah, that's right about the Sheik. I can't, again, the full name Sheik Hamad bin Ham. Yeah, sorry, I don't know his full name. It's a long name, but yeah, you're right about that. You're correct. Another point I wanted to make out is the PR and communication is going to be an important aspect of this role as well. Will they involve, certain ex-footballers, David Beckham, Gary Neville, celebrity supporters? Will they kind of turn to them? Maybe emails already been shared. Maybe there's been a couple of phone calls. Gary Neville and David Beckham have got ties to Qatar. Gary Neville got absolutely plastered for it, didn't it, in the media on, I think it was Have I Got News For You by Ian. Can't remember the guy's second name, but he got belted about that, like moaning about Qatari ownership and what they do about the human rights, but then taking money off them to work over there, and he got really scrutinized for that. So I think it would put Gary Neville in a difficult position if he went with that again and was kind of publicly speaking out about it. Obviously, of course, it's Super Sunday tomorrow. You got Manchester United versus Leicester, so he's probably going to be asked about it. And I'm going to find it interesting to see what he says. But yeah, we'll be live for that game. Leicester, 1 o'clock. We'll be live for team news. Obviously, the game kicks off at 2. So make sure you come and join us for the watch along an hour before that. And we'll go through everything together. Of course, if there's any more developments on story as well, we'll touch on that. But yeah, look, this is going to be interesting to see if you contact any of these guys, because it's going to be a battle now to try win the fans over and make us lean towards certain bids to be, just be aware of that. That's all I'm saying. You can't underestimate the power if a Gary Neville or a David Beckham come out publicly backing one of these potential bidders. And it could be Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It could be. It could be the Qatar. I doubt it'd be an American kind of thing. Maybe it might with, David Beckham's obviously got a club over there into Miami, might have connections there. I don't know. Maybe no one will come out of it at all. But you think if you're bidding for the club, put yourself in their shoes. If you're bidding for the club, you want someone like a David Beckham, a legend, or someone like Gary Neville, who's, big connections within that kind of industry, to publicly come out and back your bid. That would sway quite a lot of fans, I imagine. I'm not saying me specifically or anyone on the channel. Don't want to speak for them, but I feel like it could it could sway a lot of people towards their bid. That's just my personal opinion, especially if, they really push it out in the media. But as well, there will be other tactics deployed to try sway fans, a certain way. And I believe this is what we'll see a bit more of over the next kind of couple of weeks. Let's have a look. Some more comments. Thank you for interacting. As always, appreciate you joining, guys. Which investor do you think brings the most out of the club? If I'm being honest, we touched on this yesterday. We did a big show about the Qatari ownership. I think if Qatar took over and did what they was going to say, I think United would be at the very top of European football again. I genuinely believe that. But there's discussions ongoing about human rights, how they treat the LGBTQ plus community, etc. So that's conversations that need to be pushed and conversations that need to be had. And that's that. You just literally led me on to the next topic there perfectly. Another thing to note, both sides of the bids, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Qatar, I've had the critics. One suggestion, Qatar are looking at sports washing. The other suggestion is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is looking at greenwashing. So these conversations about human rights records and environmental pollution are hot topics on the table. And someone might come out and say, well, one's worse than the other. I get it. But ultimately, they're both as bad as each other. And they've both got that's why they're investing in sports. You get a certain PR from sports, like a public reputation. That's what it is. When you're out, if you got your name tied to all these British, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe has with his, which I'm going to touch on in a sec, like with his cycling and sailing and stuff. And your name is attached to that brand, it just breeds positivity, especially in like a name like Manchester United. The global appeal, do not underestimate Manchester United global appeal. It's huge. And you have your name tied to that. They did a similar thing with the World Cup, because the World Cup went on so well. People forgot about the things that actually went on. Don't forget them stadiums he was playing in. They had immigrant workers over from India and other areas of the world paying him absolute pennies, providing him shit accommodation to build these stadiums, and a lot of them died building the stadiums, and then they knocked him down after it. So the way people are treated over there, do you want to be tied to that? Some people are, I'm not bothered. Look, it's out of my hands. I'm a fan. Like, I don't get a say in this, which I completely understand. I see both sides of it, but for me, it does weigh on my conscience a little bit. If Qatar was to take over, but it's down to personal opinion, and it's one of those things it's going to be ongoing for weeks and weeks. Even whoever it is who take over, the conversation is going to continue about that. Probably more so about Qatar than Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but both of them, have had the critics in terms of certain, what the companies are doing or what the royal family's doing. But look, it's early stages. These conversations need to happen. It needs to happen. But look, like I said, the bids have literally just gone in. So we'll see what goes on with that. I'm going to touch on Sir Jim Ratcliffe in a second. If Ratcliffe takes over, is he the only one buying the Glazers 69%? I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Glazers are not selling. I don't know where you've got the inside information from, but they probably are. It'll be a percentage not selling the whole club, my opinion. When is the date of the decision? So apparently 6 weeks from now, you're talking around Easter is when the club is going to be officially sold. Now the bids have gone in. So it's a case of the Glazers looking at it. I would say assessing it, but they're not going to assess it either. They're going to look at it and they're going to go, yeah, that's the most money. We're probably going to take that. That's how it's going to go. But these things take a bit of time. James saying, I'm from Manchester, Wythenshawe. I want Qatar. Not every man wants Ratcliffe. He's British, the Glazers. And I'm glad you said that. I'm happy you said that because that's something I wanted to touch on. Look, I'll discuss Ratcliffe and then I'll definitely get into that comment because it's an interesting perspective and that's something I wanted to bring up talking about Jim Ratcliffe. So, of course, Jim Ratcliffe, a lot of us know him, one of the richest men in the UK, has a net worth of £15 billion. His chemical company, Ineos, has many endeavours in sports. They own teams like OGC Nice in France, which, to be honest, if you look at the way that ownership model is going, he's not done a fantastic job. But again, he kind of bought the club during the pandemic, so you can kind of understand the financials wasn't the best, but how the club's being run also isn't the best. So that's something you might want to take a look at. If you've got a bit of spare time, look at how Sir Jim Ratcliffe's running OGC Nice. Interesting, very interesting. He also owns Swiss Super Sport League team FC Lausanne Sport, and then away from football, Ineos owns a successful sailing team, Ineos Britannia. Cycling team Ineos Grenadiers is also among the company's roster, which has already yielded success in the Tour de France. And Ineos also owns a third of Formula One team Mercedes, becoming principal partners on a 5-year contract in 2020. He is a lifelong Manchester United fan who, I think we all remember when he tried to buy Chelsea, fell at the last hurdle to Todd Bowley. Now United have become available to buy. He's put his name in the hat a few weeks ago, and then his official bid last night, and released a statement with that, which had people a little bit confused, to be honest. Let me just try to find the quote. Have I sent the quote over? But initially, no figures had been released. When the bid went in last night, everyone was like, how? Because we saw figures that Sky Cavi and a couple of other journalists, Mike Keegan, I think it was, he was talking about the Qatari bid, and he was saying it's going to be 4.5 billion, I think. And apparently, like I said, no figures have been officially released, I don't think, until now, maybe. But it's believed that the bid is going to be around £4 billion with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And then the confusion about the percentages, because people saw he only wants to buy a majority of it. He doesn't want the full thing, which is what Qatar released in their statement. They said they want the full club 100%. The words were chosen a little bit weird because Sir Jim Ratcliffe said only a majority, but essentially he wants a majority stake in Ineos's. Wait, what did Simon Stone say? Essentially, he wants a majority stake in Ineos's Man United statement. Effectively means they want all of the Glazers' shares, which control the club, essentially. Now, what happens to the other shares, I don't know, because you have like Class A shares and then Class B shares, don't you? And then certain are more important than others. I have no idea, but ultimately he'll still have full ownership of Manchester United. So yeah, that kind of differentiates from what people first initially thought when they saw the quotes coming out. And his plan wasn't as detailed. So hopefully we'll hear more about the structure on that, what his proposal is, what he wants to do with the club. I imagine he's probably going to put similar things out to what Qatar has done with investing in the women's team, the men's team, the infrastructure, stadium, training facilities, all that kind of stuff. And sources close to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid for United say he wants to put Manchester back into Manchester United should he take over. And I thought there was a little bit of a... Look, I'm from Manchester myself, And, you know, a lot of people might think, well, surely you love that comment, don't you? But it's not. I felt like it was a little bit bit of a Brexit answer. Like, I want to put the Manchester back in. Sounded like when I was reading the quote, it sounded like I was just hearing Nigel Farage in my head. Like, I have to say, you all laughed at me. You're not laughing now. And it was like kind of like I'll put the Manchester back into Manchester United. Do you know what I'm saying? It had that feel about it. And I think I felt like he's kind of reaching for a certain demographic there. And a similar motive to the Athletic, because the Athletic put out a poll, didn't they? Who do you want, like, to United fans, who do you want to take over? And I think it was 8,000 people who were bidding, not bidding, 8,000 people who put in who they want to bid, excuse me. And apparently 70% said Jim Ratcliffe, which was a surprise. Like, I'm not saying that's not the wrong decision, but it was a bit of a surprise because everything I've seen online, people on Twitter, people I've interacted with, people on the comment section on the channel, you know, people on big fan channels like Paddock and whatchamacallit on United Stand. A lot of them saying Qatari ownership. United Stand did a poll and it says 70% Qatari ownership. Now, is that more international fans who want Qatar and then more Manchester-based local fans who want Sir Jim? Maybe there's a bit of a pendulum swing with that. I'm not entirely sure on the in-depth insight into that, but that's a suggestion that I would probably follow. Sources also say any money borrowed to fund the takeover from United will be borne by the Ineos group rather than the club, meaning no fresh debt. Yeah, so we've already touched on that. That's something I've already mentioned. And it's interesting because, you know, when there was discussions, the other thing with the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid, which a lot of people were plucking at, was the bit with the debt. Because obviously under the Glazers, we've had this lingering debt that's like a bad smell for years and years, 500, 600 million. And then one of the, you know, the things that's put forward is to whoever it is who's taken over the club, what are you going to do with that debt? And then we heard discussions that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was in contact with JP Morgan and Gordon, what is it, Golden Shanks or Banks or something like that? Golden Sachs, it might be. Sounds a bit dodgy. But yeah, the debt situation, Sir Jim Ratcliffe contacted these investment things, and, you know, fans weren't exactly happy about that, but apparently it's been putting on Ineos and it's not going to be, you know, put on the club, essentially. So that's better. That's much better. And Ratcliffe has also told the Rain Group that he could be the long-term custodian for the club after receiving Wall Street backing. So that's where we're at the minute. It's super interesting in the minute. Get your comments in on YouTube as well. Make sure you smash a like on the video. I'm just going to run a poll at the minute. Anyone watch the Arsenal game as well, by the way? Bastards. Won it right towards the end, Jorginho and Martinelli. So I want to see where people stand on this. Who do you want? Let's run our own poll on Real Reds Talk and we'll see what people think. Jim Ratcliffe. People on TikTok, if you want to head over to the YouTube, the link is in the bio. Come and get involved in the discussion. So Jim Ratcliffe. Oh, I'm not putting the guy's full name. I just cannot remember the full name, if I'm being completely honest. Why does it say quarter? Do you want to Jim Ratcliffe or quarter? Ask your community. So we'll see. We'll see what people put. Get voting on that, please, if you can. Let's see what people are saying in the TikTok. Big up the TikTok community, by the way. A lot of comments here. I'll try to get a couple from the Withenshaw one I've read out. I'm glad the Glazers are going. Likewise, I'm with you on that, Matthew. Look what Abu Dhabi have done with City around Openshaw. Ratcliffe is peppered. He can't pay debt. It's funny. It's funny. Yeah, look, that's another thing. Qatar are investing in the community around the stadium. That's another thing that's going to please people, obviously, people, local fans, which is why it's a little bit confusing because I feel like a lot of local fans, from what you see online, what people are putting out there, they want to Jim Ratcliffe. But again, a lot of people I've spoken to, they want Qatari ownership. You know, if you say to any United fan, look, I'm not going to tell you who it is. One person wants to buy the club for 4.5 billion. They'll invest, they'll give Ten Hag a war chest, essentially. They'll invest in the infrastructure, the women's team, everything you want for the club, basically, and the new stadium, a brand new shiny stadium. And then, you know, the other one is going to be a bit more measured in his approach. The debt, he doesn't want the full 100%. He's only just going to buy the shares off the Glade. Like, I would think naturally people would lean more towards Qataris, and then everything they're doing in the community as well around Manchester. Like James just said there, look what Abu Dhabi have done with the city around Openshaw. There'd be a similar thing around Trafford, Stretford, and the Manchester area. So that's another thing that'll probably push him up the list a little bit more. So if Ratcliffe doesn't want to know the full Manchester United, what percentage is 7 out of 70? So what would happen with the other 30? I'm not entirely sure. This is what I mean, because you have Class A shares and you have Class B shares. And look, I have to be honest, this might come as a surprise, but I'm not a financial expert, so I don't get how look. I could look into it tonight, and it's something I might do because I actually want to know how it would work. But he would have the majority. I'm just not sure what would happen with the other percentages. Maybe he might offer it to fans. I don't know. That might be something like a little, a trick up his sleeve that he's got, a trick, whatever you want to call it, to say, this percentage I want to give to fans, and then I'll own the other 70. But I don't know, because I don't know who the other shareholders are, if that makes sense. I know obviously a few of the Glazer family have percentages in it, but I think there's a few other people as well. So I'll look into that tonight. That's something I'll definitely put on the list. Goldman Sachs, that's what it is. Thank you, little Dan. Ghostface Killers in Scream. Okay. No idea. It's just a full conversation about Mortal Kombat here or something in the chat. You just get random people, don't you? Anyway, in the modern day football, we need super wealthy owners. In all respect to Sir Jim, Qatar is the best option. And this is the thing is with this, before all these bids came in and there was just kind of pre-discussion about it, everybody's looking at Manchester City, everybody's looking at Newcastle, and they're saying that is the way the Premier League is going at the minute. You've got big multi-billionaire owners who are investing so much money into the clubs, it's impossible to compete with them. And this is why Spurs, maybe Liverpool, unless they get taken over, Arsenal, these kind of clubs will be looking at it now and they'll be like, we've not got a fucking chance. You can't compete with them kind of financials. And I understand FFP will come into this and have the say and etc. But even still, the stadiums like that they're going to be built. I know Tottenham's got a fantastic stadium, but they're still paying that off at the minute. And when it comes to the transfer market, they can't invest as much as others. So it's going to be hard to compete with these clubs, especially if Manchester United get taken over by Qatar. That is like a powerhouse, because United are one of the few clubs on the planet who don't even need that kind of ownership. Because if you just push organic growth for the club, you could nurture it. You could make enough revenue anyway. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you're winning on the pitch, which is, more than possible with Ten Hag. But if you put a Qatari ownership behind Ten Hag as well, I mean, look, I am still very concerned with the human rights side of things. Absolutely. If you look at that, though, just separate the two things for a second. Qatari, Eric Ten Hag back with that much money could be good. It's not guaranteed to be good, because, they might just come in and bought Mbappe for $1 billion, like these kind of guys. And Mbappe's a fantastic player, but they might throw him on 800 grand a week. That upsets the wage structure. And then, because there's been a lot of talk about that we want to cap the wage structure to 200, 300K. Is that going to happen with Qataris coming in? Like, how are they going to run it? Are they going to let it, Ten Hag organically do what he's been doing anyway? From a lot of the things that Sheik has said, who's the guy who I can't remember his full name again. Sheik Jasmine bin Hamad Al Thani, is it? Yeah, head of Qatar Bank, Islamic Bank. He wants to invest in youth. A lot of the principles that we associate with Manchester United, that's something he wants to do. So, yeah, it might not be just a case of throw money at that, throw money at that, throw money at that. Because you look at PSG, that's what kind of their model is, it seems. And they still haven't managed to win the Champions League despite having Kylian Mbappe, Neymar, and Lionel Messi. So, yeah. Jordan Dobson, hello, mate. If you're a subscriber to the channel, big up to yourself. If not, please do subscribe, but welcome to the chat. The only issue is, are UEFA are going to let them actually buy the club and let us compete in the Champions League and Europa League because of the ownership with PSG as well. But this would be a similar thing with every owner that comes in. So if, if Qatar buy us, essentially it's under the same umbrella, but two different investors. So QIA and QSI, I think it is the two different ones. But PSG, it's weird because you have Salzburg and Leipzig who are in the same thing, right? They play in the same competition. Somehow they've got past that as a loophole. They've managed to prove that the financials don't come from the same bit. They're a completely different entity, but from the same group. So I don't know how they've managed to work the way through that through the financial loophole. Fuck knows, don't have a clue. But then you have Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who has owns OGC Nice, who could be in the Champions League. I'm not sure. I think they're 6th at the minute, maybe a little bit down lower. So they might be in the Europa League. So if we're in the Champions League, it means we won't face them. But it's still a potential thing to happen. So then how would they do that? like they'd have to find a way around it. And then certain clubs become feeder clubs, and it's all a bit of a minefield, to be honest. And likewise with US investment, because there's rumors that US investment is going to happen. A lot of talk about it today. Within the next couple of days, someone's going to come out. And the two people I mentioned when I did a show about this last week was Stephen Pagliuca, who owned Atlanta, and has a massive equity firm or investment firm in the US. Has done really well with Atlanta as well. Again, holds similar principles to what Manchester United do with youth and developing and all them kind of things. So Stephen Pagliuca is one of them who might come into the race. But then because he's got Atlanta, they can't play in the same competition. And then the other one was HBCS, I think Harrison Blitz Sports Entertainment, something like that. And he owns 18% of Crystal Palace. So then they think because that's only a minority stake, that might be okay, but I'm not entirely sure. So there's whoever it is who's coming in, there's going to be discussions about dual ownership and all these kind of things. It's going to be a stumbling block for anyone. And I think probably the amount of wealth they've got, and because they've already got numerous clubs on the planet, United becomes top priority, and then the other ones you can kind of sort out through a loophole. I'm guessing. I think that's how it's going to work. Melvin Newicki, Jordan PSG, a Nice play in the same league. We potentially face the same problem with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Exactly. Nice is another issue that they might not be able to get past. In my life, I've seen Deirdre Freed, Nelson Mandela, and now Manchester United. I mean, they're not really similar things, but I get what you're getting at there, Vincent. I take your point absolutely. Like the Glazers' ownership for fucking 18 years has been horrendous on it. And I said this to Sam on the show last night. I said we should feel like celebrating when it actually gets announced that the Glazers have gone. We feel like popping a bottle of champagne, really happy. Thank fuck they've gone. How long have we been pushing this movement for? You know what I mean? Our whole channel, Real Reds Talk, the color scheme is based off green and gold because we hate the Glazers. We want them out. Look, this behind me, love United, hate the Glazers. We've always stood by that. And for them to be going, we feel really passionate about. We feel really happy. And like I said, we want to be popping bottles of champagne outside Old Trafford. But you feel morally conflicted because of the people that are taking over. Like I said, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you've got greenwashing, environment, pollution, all that kind of stuff. Some people don't give a fuck about that. I take your point. I get it. Some people are not asked at all about anything that's tied to that. And then you've got Qatar with the human rights thing, that their approach to the LGBTQ plus community. There's discussions that need to be had. So yeah, I feel conflicted, but I feel happy at the same time that they're going because we've wanted them to go for so long. It's a weird one, isn't it? In the modern day football, yeah, I've already touched on that. Dan Lancaster says, I can't lie. I really don't want a new stadium. I'd 100% rather have work done to Old Trafford. You know what? I'll put a poll out on that. I'll see what people think in the chat as well on YouTube. What game are you watching? I'm not watching any game. I was watching Arsenal, but if you want to keep me updated on the scores, feel more than welcome to. Super wealthy owners bringing in a new competent board, and we have Eric Ten Hag, rival fans. I think the way that's going to go with them coming in, I don't think they're going to get rid of the board members straight away. I mean, they could come in and just be straight up killers and be like, sin a bit. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to assess it after 6 months and then slowly, take pieces off the chessboard and replace them with certain ones. I'm hoping so anyway. And maybe if I'm a Qatari ownership, I'm looking at Rangnick. If Ten Hag is happy with him working above him, which I don't know, there was a bit of confusion about that. But if I'm Qatari ownership, I'm looking at Rangnick and I'm putting him in that board because everything he said's come to fruition. Think about all the quotes. Just have a little second to yourself now. Think about the quotes that Rangnick said. Everything's come to fruition. I'd love to have him back on the board because I think he's got an eye for football. He just knows what he's talking about. Maybe not the best manager, which obviously we kind of figured out, didn't we? But yeah. Also, in the poll, we've got 57% Sir Jim Ratcliffe, 43% Qatar. Very interesting. So that's our community who are watching on the YouTube. Let us know, guys, if you want to come over and vote on that poll. The link is in the bio for the YouTube, so come and join us. I'm just going to put one more out. The people update me on scores and feel more than welcome to because, of course, you got the 3 o'clock kickoffs, haven't you? So what about the stadium? Let's have a look. I've put aside it's sodium. What about the sodium? A lot of like American sodium. What about the stadium? Brand new or do we modernize? Look. Fuck me, my spelling's all over the place today. Jesus. Ask your community. So vote on that. Interested to see. what people think about the stadium. My personal thing, I think I got asked about this yesterday from someone in the comment section. I don't want to knock Old Trafford down because I think there's been too many memories in there, too much history tied to it, everything we've been through as a club. I want that aura to stay. But if you can modernise it, maybe expand it, the Sir Bobby Charlton stand. I think there's a railway thing behind it, which makes complications. So I'm not sure how they're going to go about that. But if you can extend that bit, increase the capacity to, I don't know, maybe close to new camps, maybe a little bit less, 85k something. Which naturally would increase your match day revenue anyway, so you'd earn more money, which would go towards it. Definitely sort out the signal for all my people who's been in to Old Trafford in the chat. You know how bad that signal is in the stadium. It's atrocious. You can't get any connection at all. It's awful. So at half time, you kind of like trying to check other scores or trying to check your bets and shit, and you're just like nothing's loading at all. So that's something. Maybe that's why I was buzzing when I heard about Apple being taken over, because I was like, can you imagine the Wi-Fi be tremendous in there? And it's a small thing in comparison to a lot of stuff. But the new stadium, I want it modernized, I want it expanded. And Sam mentioned something yesterday that, you know how Man City have it, where they have like a bridge over to the youth kind of academy, and it's all kind of like one network. I'd like to see that as well. I think that'd be nice. And people could watch the youth games right next to it. The women's team wouldn't have to play at Leeds Sports Village. Like, it'd be a nice community section. And Manchester United own all the land around it. So the potential for that stadium, for the club in general and everything around it is huge. And I think that's why Qatar have looked at this and they've like, we could make this an absolute dynasty. We really could for the next 10, 20, 30 years. If we invest right, back Manchester United an absolute powerhouse with unlimited funds, we'll be back on top of European football again. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Absolutely convinced of it. Who would you like to see buy the club? I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence, quite like a lot of people. I want to see more. I like the plan, because the one thing I've always said is I want to see a 10-step plan of what they want to do with the club. And I like the plan that they put forward, especially the Qatar one. But I want to see a little bit more. I want to see a bit more in depth. What about fan engagement? How are you going to go about that? Because we got promised that after the Super League and we heard fuck all from it. So again, everything can always be lip service. You can't take absolutely everything at face value. And that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to say, fully commit and be 100% like, I definitely want him. Yeah. To be honest, I just think Ten Hag's doing such a fantastic job now. If you just treat, nurture United how it should be done, we could be a powerhouse anyway, but that's yet to be seen. I think there's going to be a couple more bidders in this. I think there's going to be a couple of US, maybe Saudi Arabia coming into the race as well. So it could be a 5-horse race, 4-horse race, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of people are kind of, distancing themselves from US investment. And I get it, because of the Glazers, because of the Cronkies at Arsenal, because of FSG at Liverpool, because of what Todd Bowley's doing at thing. I get it. A lot of people don't like the US investment. And a lot of people think they're more focused on their own franchises, like, for example, the Glazers own Tampa Buccaneers, right? They're more asked about them winning the Super League than United winning. That's how it feels. And then same with other kind of, the guy who touched on before, Harrison Sports, Blitzer Entertainment, something along the lines of that, own like New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia, is it 76ers, something? So the more, indulged in them kind of clubs than they are across the waters. As long as they're kept afloat in their Champions League, they're kind of happy with that. So a lot of people are against American owners, American ownership, excuse me, and I get it. I completely understand it. But that's not to say I don't think you can tie one nationality to how our ownership's going to be. Like Stephen Pagliuca, who I touched on before, American businessman, owns Atlanta. If you look at the way Atlanta are run, fantastic manager, fantastic infrastructure. The youth development's incredible. They invest a lot into that. They sell really well. They buy really well. Like they're a well-run club, Atlanta. So yeah, it's like I said, it's not all kind of. I don't think it's all rain if someone like that was to take over, but it wouldn't be my preferred one. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see what people are saying with the stadium. So 60% are saying modernize the stadium, 40% are saying brand new. For the people who put brand new, will you put in the comment section why you would like a brand new? Not because you're wrong or not because you're thinking, but just interested to see why you would want a completely new stadium and the reasons for it. Me being a Newcastle fan, wondering, do you think you're going to struggle next Sunday? It's going to be a hard game. And the main reason why it's going to be a hard game is because United play Leicester on Sunday. Newcastle play Liverpool today, right, at 5:30. Then you guys don't play until next week. So you have 7 days, 8 days rest before a big final. Wembley pitch, massive pitch, could go to extra time, could go to penalties. That's where you'll benefit from it, I think. And we play Leicester Sunday, we play Barcelona in a really important game on Thursday, which is, it's going to drain the players quite a lot. It's going to be very emotional. And then you've got a kind of quick turnaround before that. But I think if United turn up on Sunday in killer mode with the quality players that we've got, Casemiro, Lisandro, Varane, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford in the form that he's in at the minute, De Gea, pulls off a few worldy saves or whatever, I think we're probably favourites to win it. And I think we can win it. So that's my opinion. But Newcastle have got a very good chance. But I just edge us favourites going into it. That's what I suggest. Because Newcastle's form hasn't been great. If they lose to Liverpool at 5:30, that could be another bit where bit of a stumble. But I think they've got like 5 draws in 6 games or 5 draws in 7 games, something along the lines of that. So, yeah, for anyone on the TikTok, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. The link is in the bio. Head over there. We've got a Leicester preview literally in an hour and a half. We're going to be live in an hour and a half with the Leicester preview. Really interesting. We're going to have a couple of lads on for that. I think Shreyas and Sam are joining me. So if you want to come join us for the preview, make sure you do that. But yeah, I just thought you'd give you a quick kind of update and an insight into the 2 bidders, Jim Ratcliffe and Sheik. I can't remember the rest of his name. I keep saying it, but Sheik, Jasmine, something. The guy of Qatar Islamic Bank, essentially. So just thought I'd give you a bit more depth on that and insight into that and have a conversation about it and see what people think. Sam says the interesting thing about the Sheik is he's an independent businessman, so the connections to the Qatari government seem less so. That's very interesting. Very interesting point. Like we said, we're going to hear more developments about it, aren't we, over the next week. So I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen. The race has officially begun for the ownership. So within the next 6 weeks, the club is looking like it's going to be sold. It's not definite, but it's looking like it's going to be sold. I think Newcastle United looks good. Like they have run out of steam. That's kind of a double negative there. Anyhow, I'll see you guys for the preview. Make sure you come and tune in for it. Manchester United versus Leicester. Huge game, Super Sunday. Maybe a couple of teams around us drop points again. It could be an important game. Leicester back in form after smashing Spurs 4-1. So it's going to be a tough game as well. Come and join us for the preview. Get in the comments section. And yeah, my name's Nick. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on socials. I'll see you lot on the next one. Take care of yourself.